Okay, that's better. What do I want to do here? So we are going to play around with load balancing with HAProxy or HAProxy. I haven't really prepared too much for this other than to have some like general idea of how to install and configure it because I've done it before. I'm just kind of familiarizing myself with it because I'm going to be using it again on the scaling Laravel course. So just going to be kind of playing around with it. I spun up 3 servers already, so we can kind of just start with stuff. I think I'm going to start by actually having some code to run. So let's log on into app server 0 here and do some stuff. So I'm going to do stuff in a bash script just so I can copy and paste it and do the same thing on the next server as well. Install -y vim curl tmux wget zip unzip htop. That'll be okay for now. So that's just installing random basic stuff. Then I want add apt repository -y yay nginx development, and so I'm going to get nginx, latest nginx, and then I'm going to get latest PHP. Sudo, I'm going to run that with sudo apt-get install -y nginx PHP 7.1 fpm, and I want to copy and paste this from somewhere. What have I done recently? Service stack install. I am just going to copy and paste all the stuff I copied this from. Did fpm. Let's get the rest of these. Oh, somebody yelled at me before on the internets. At least use SSL. Sure, okay. SSL and Composer. Can I do that? Yeah, that's fine. Let's do that. And some of this I'll do manually. Okay, so let's copy and paste that. I do want to copy and paste the correct version. Let's try to run this. Just to get nginx PHP and Composer, and we'll get a Laravel app installed, I think, if I didn't mess up stuff in that bash script. So this is just going to be the application server, one of the two. So we have something to run from the load balancer. You don't like me. What did I do here? Of course. What did I do there? I know what I did there. Okay, whatever. I think I can just run that without breaking things. No way. Don't lie to me. Oh, I didn't install nginx. That would be a reason for that. Oh, I did install it. So what don't you like? Nginx should create that directory. Install dot. Of course, typos. This is the good stuff I get to edit out of videos when you guys aren't watching. Repository. Where are you? HP. apt-get update, did I? Nope. apt-get update. Of course you don't think you have it. It should run here when I did it the second time. Cool. Adventures in bash scripting, in which nothing ever works the first time. In the meantime, let's log into my next server, the application server. My first server here while this is all going down and I'm waiting for it. Let's log back into the first server on yet another tab. Cat out install to sh so I can copy and paste you. Insert here into the other server and sudo bash install there. Okay, so we'll get that running while this is going too. Good. Yeah, okay. Let's see, let's get Nginx working. Let's see, Nginx, sites available, default, all that. Public, that looks okay. And get the permissions right. And let's see, that was my app and Bootstrap, and then my app and storage directory. Hello, server. There we go. Okay, so that's the wrong page, but I need to do Nginx reload. Cool. All right. So next server. Still going. I'm just going to exit this one for now. Let's see, Nginx, sites available, default. Set paste, insert. Save and quit it. Config tests. You think you're okay? Let's reload you. Sudo change ownership recursively, and I'm gonna do it to www.data with user and group, and that'll be to the storage directory and the Bootstrap directory. Then I should be able to grab the IP address here, and we have a Laravel app on both app servers. Okay, good. Cool. Okay, that takes care of the boring part. Let's actually look at the load balancer here and see what we want to do on this server. So I've done nothing on this server yet. Let's do another bash script. Install, well, let's name it differently. I'll do this, just name it HAProxy.sh. And env, grab the correct bash for my current user. And I know I'm gonna want at least these things. I am doing sudo this time apparently. Whatever, matter. Tmux vim curl wget zip unzip htop. That'll be fine. The repository, then the apt-get update, and then apt-get install -y proxy. I think that's it. Install some basics, get this repository to get the latest HAProxy, which is 1.7. That is, well, we can go to HAProxy.org. All I did to figure that out is I went to HAProxy.org. I found out the latest stable release is 1.7, and then I just Googled PPA HAProxy 1.7, and magically, here it is. And I also know I've happened to use this repository before from Vincent Burnett. And that tells you how to run it and install it. So that's just what we're doing here with, I've added the -y flag here so it doesn't prompt me about it. Save and quit that. I'll do sudo bash proxy, and hopefully I haven't messed this up too bad. Cool. Okay. So proxy status. What do you say? You are running, and then I can do ps-aux, I'll grep for proxy, and it's running. We can just see there's processes, and it's run by user and group proxy, and there's a master process, it looks like, run by root. System D wrapper, that's interesting. Okay, cool. So HAProxy is configured in etc HAProxy. I'm going to say HAProxy all the time instead of HAProxy because it's easier, and I'm lazy. Errors. Oh, okay, so it has error pages in there. And we have the main configuration in this little guy here. So let's sudo vim that and just see what's inside of the default configuration out of the box. So global stuff, default stuff, I think that's it. A secure set of SSL ciphers, no SSL v3, that's cool. We have where it's logging to sys or our syslog. A daemon that's available for logging, or /devlog, so we can actually send text to /devlog, and that ends up in a log file somewhere. I think I might talk about that in the Service Whackers book. I don't know if I have any videos on it, but this uses the system's logging mechanism to send logs places. And we're going to play with that a little bit, I think. We do a chroot to jail it to varlib proxy, which is neat. That's pretty secure. And we can use its sort of API that it has by pinging the socket file with telnet or socat or something like that. I don't know if I'll get to that in this video or not. Excuse me. All right, so it's run as user and group HAProxy. It's run as a daemon, so it's run as a daemon. Good story. So certs private, so it doesn't have anything configured. These are the default places to look for SSL cert. Chains, default root chains, root certificate authorities, stuff like that. Okay, so log, follow the global log config, mode HTTP. So we're going to use this as a HTTP load balancer by default, not a TCP layer load balancer. You might use a TCP layer if you are load balancing things like MySQL connections, which doesn't speak in HTTP, but instead on a lower level TCP. Cool, okay. Let's start playing with stuff. I'm looking at old files here where I have configuration examples. So let's continue with that stuff. We need two sections. We need to add two sections here. One's going to be a front end where we define what incoming connections do. And then a back end where we defined the back end servers that this will send and load balance connections amongst. So I'll just call it backend nodes. We can name them, right? So the front end will just be, what do I want to name this? Example, because who cares? It's named example. Backend will just name nodes. I'll just name, the servers we're going to load balance between as the nodes. Front end, the thing accepting connections on HAProxy, I'll just call example. And then we can start doing stuff inside of it. So there's no blocks here in the configuration, right? You can just tab space it, as they've done up here. I'm going to do 4 spaces instead of tabs, though, because tabs over spaces, or spaces over tabs, whatever. Cool. Okay, so I don't know if I'll get 2 SSL certificates, but we're going to bind every network on the server to port 80. So this is going to listen on the standard port 80 for web traffic on each network on this. So if I do if config, each network is going to be its private network here. It's going to be localhost, and there's one you don't actually see here because AWS hides it, but it's the public network, which is what happens when we are going to go to this IP address here. And if we go to this IP address, HAProxy is probably not listening on it yet. Right, we haven't configured anything. It's not listening. So this will just time out, I think. Okay, so it's bind in port 80. I can say mode HTTP again, although I don't have to because that's a default up here, but I'll just do it to be verbose. It's not going to be mode TCP or anything. Default backend. So this is nice and simple, right? So if I only have one backend defined, I can just say the default backend is nodes, and it's just going to send stuff to nodes. Now that won't do anything yet because nodes doesn't know where to send the request, right? Because it doesn't know about my other servers yet. So let's change that. So this can be mode HTTP as well. Again, that's the default, so I don't really need to do it. I'm going to tell it to round robin across my 2 servers. So there's a bunch of algorithms you can use. Round robin is the easiest because it just hops between servers. But you can do things like do session affinity, where once you go to one server and you get a cookie set up there, the cookie tells the HAProxy to keep sending you back to the same server. So you end up only using one server in the load balance rotation. And then there's other things like IP address hashing. So based on your IP address, it decides which load balancer to go to. And there's a bunch of others as well. Some based on the number of connections and that kind of thing to kind of fairly distribute based on load. Cool. Okay, so next option, forward 4. We're just going to add some forward 4 headers for us. It has a convenient set of a few, X forwarded 4 headers it's going to set up for us. We'll see which ones. Do I want to do that? Yeah, okay. Well, no, not yet. I was going to set up a health checker, but I'm not going to do that yet. Let's just see what this gives us by default with these settings. So now I can define a server, and I can just say app01. So server is the keyword here. App01 is the name of it, and then the actual address of that is these 2. So this IP address. I'm going to try the private IP address first, because they're in the same private network, so that should work. That's at port 80. Then we have another server, app02, at this private network IP address on port 80. And there's other stuff I can put here. I'm not going to put it there yet. Okay. I forget if there's a config check here. I doubt it. Let's see if that exists. Hello, Google. Hello. I'm not sure if I'll get to SSL yet on this video, Leonardo. It kind of depends. Leonardo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. I don't know if I have time. We'll see. It's already almost 11:30. I'm going to end this at about 12, my time zone. Let's try it. User SPN HAProxy, that is the right location. So we'll check it with verbosity, and they said the file is the file there. So that is indeed what I want to try out. What's this tell us? So that is user SPN, well, whatever. I'll just do HAProxy. Etsy HAProxy, HAProxy config. File is valid. Cool, okay. And the other thing I'm going to set up real quick. Where are you? My notes. I think I have this on my site. Let's find you. Okay, so load balancing. That might be it. This might be the one I want. Say I want 1.5 in my old post here. Sample server, configuration, global defaults. I'll add in some of this stuff in a bit. Load balancing algorithms. This is what I'm looking for. Let's see if that still works in 1.7. I think it will. Although I don't have any health checks configured yet. So before I even get to that, I'm going to add that in, but not reload the configuration yet. So it won't actually take effect. But I will put that in for now. Okay. I need the IP address of the load balancer, the public IP address. Throw that in here. Oh, it's actually doing it. And I'm assuming it's load balancing between the two servers, but let's actually confirm that. You are this public IP address for the other app server. Started of my app. Let's see, routes, web, it's just routes. Of course, did that work? It did. Okay. Started of my app routes sudo vim web. And comment this out. And I don't have op cache on or anything, so I think this should just work. Server 1, server 0. We're only doing server 0. That's interesting. We're doing server 02 in a private browser section setting. From my server, let's do curl server 0, server 0, server 0, server 0. Interesting. Okay. Let's go and explore and see why that is. Now, the reason why I tested in terminal is because then it doesn't do any cookies. It doesn't remember any cookies and send any cookies back. So there's no kind of cookie interaction if HAProxy is trying to do like a sticky session thing or something, which it shouldn't be because it's not configured to. Okay, so now is a good time to see that we are going to do, it's going to listen for stats on 1936. That's not really going to work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tell this to listen on stats on 443, but it's not going to do any SSL stuff. It's just going to happen to listen on port 443 also, because that is all I have open on my security groups here. Yeah, okay, so 443 it is. Let's just see if that breaks or not. Sudo service proxy load, not load, reload. Didn't like that. Okay. I don't think this will catch an error because it's not a syntax thing, right? Or it is. Okay, I wonder if that configuration changed since I've last played with HAProxy. Proxy, what do they call this thing? What's the word for this? Statistics, proxy stats. Yeah, okay, bind. Oh, I see, yep. Syntax has changed. Let's do this. Like it, sudo service proxy load. Let's bring it over here. I'm going to be at port 443 and see. I don't think the browser will really try. Okay, so what did I do? Some user and some password. That sounds right. auth, some user, and password. So not some password, but password. Cool. All right, so it does see 2 servers. There's no check. There's no downtime. Not checked, right? It's just not checked. Interesting that it just keeps going to the first one. Okay, let's add some checks, see if that changes anything. Back to my notes. Over here on the screen, you cannot see. So on the back end, we're going to define our health checks. And you can do an option. It's an HTTP-based health check. It's going to send a head request instead of like a get or a post. And then we get to tell it to send some, send some headers. So we're going to say use HTTP 1.1 and set the host header to localhost. I'm going to set this to my app. It won't really matter what I set the host name to in this case. It's all going to reach the same server configuration. And here. Sure, I actually have. Oh, it's not checked, so let's see. I'm going to save and quit that. I'm going to copy and paste these. I know they're not real commands. Quit yelling at me. So I can curl request this. Let's make sure you're still actually healthy. Ooh, they both say server 0. Good, good. None of you guys caught that? No one yelled at me in chat. Okay, we're all idiots together. Look at that, bouncing between the two. It's doing the right thing the whole time. Okay, good. I need to update this post. Okay, so you don't change at all, but you do actually show that I have some connections to both servers. It has some, the number of bytes that have gone in and out between the two and the total number of, I guess, sessions. 4 sessions, that's interesting. Anyway, let's edit you again. All right, so I haven't reloaded this. There's a health check here, but I haven't reloaded it yet. So it's going to be a health check. It's going to set the host to my app. It's going to send to the URI, just the / here. And it's going to be looking for a non-400, non-500 response. Probably even needs to be in the 200s. I'm not sure. But to finish that off, we need to add the word check at the end here too. And HAProxy will begin checking each IP address here, each server configured based on the option here, based on how we tell it to do an HTTP check. So let's do this command again, cvf etc HAProxy. That is valid. Load. And let's see, you should be bouncing between the two still. So those are up and healthy apparently. And okay, so these are green now because they're active and up because we are actually checking. We have health checks going to those servers. And let's see, I'm in a server here. Let's go to var log nginx and tail-f access log. And we have head request here, right? Perfect. So we can see how often it's health checking, which is actually pretty quick. I think just every 1 or 2 seconds. 1 Mississippi. Okay, every 1 second or so it's sending a health check request, which is actually kind of a lot. Cool. So that's doing its thing. Oh, let's see what it's sending our servers. Instead of server 01, well, in addition to that, I'm also going to var dump server. No, didn't quit. Okay, and copy and paste this on this server as well. Thank you. Okay, so x http _x. Okay, so when we add this option in here to add forward 4, it's literally just adding the x forwarded 4 header, which is going to give me the IP address of my Time Warner IPv4 IP address that I have here down in Texas. So we have some other headers we probably want to include, and I think the rules for that are still the same in this latest version of HAProxy. So let's add those headers as well. So we can do HTTP request. So in the request, set the following header, x forwarded port, and we have this little fun thing here, which is going to grab the port from the request. It's going to grab the port used, the destination port specifically. So the destination port is the port used on our front end here, which is going to be port 80 because I don't have an SSL setup. Now we set that header. Over here we add the header, and it's x forwarded pro. I don't know why they're set better, header versus add. That might just be that both work, or so I'm not sure. I may have just not noticed that when I first figured this out, you know, however long ago. That's interesting. Anyway, then we're going to do x forwarded proto, which is going to say it's HTTPS if SSL certificates was used. I forget what SSL-FC means exactly. I'm not going to have time to really look up to show you what these are exactly, but they're sort of just like, you know, this is a conditional, this is just setting kind of like a variable, just the port used, and this is a, I think they call them filters or something like that, but really it ends up being a conditional. You can say if an SSL certificate was used. So I think that should be okay. We're going to just see port 80 in HTTP because we haven't set up an SSL certificate. We're not going to edit through anything but port 80. But we're getting told what the destination port is and the SSL certificate is, so that our application can use that information if it needs to. So we're going to do this again, Etsy, HAProxy. I should make a shortcut for that, but I'm not going to. -v, not just v. So it likes it. HAProxy, reload. Okay, so now we have some more x forwarded stuff. Now we don't have proto, do we? Don't have that yet. So my notes might be wrong on something here. Which do we have? We have port, but not proto. So let's just say set header. See if that's my mistake. Or I wonder if this just does nothing if it's not, if it doesn't meet this criteria. So you just get no header there. Let's find out. No. So we have port and we have 4, but we still don't have protocol because I guess we're just not, it's just not going to show or add or set that header if we're not using an SSL certificate. So that must be the case there, or at least that's my guess. It's not going to say HTTP if it's not SSL. It's just not going to add the header at all, which is fine because the default is HTTP. So that would be the other option there. All right, what else might be fun? Actually, what did we do? So we set up a front end. HAProxy is listening on port 80 for new requests. I'm not doing an SSL certificate just yet, although 20 minutes left, maybe I'll try it. We're in a round robin, mode HTTP again. We set our forwarded 4 and some other headers as well. We set up our health checks, and then we have it listening for stats. I use port 443, which is really a bad choice, but my AWS is only going to let me use either port 80 or 443 to send HTTP requests to the server. So that was my other option. Let's check out the stats. I think they're still green for everything. Cool. Oh, I've reloaded it. So every time we reload our HAProxy, our stats are getting reset here a bit. Yeah, so now that I've refreshed that a few times, we have a new number of counts of new requests and how many bytes have been coming in and out and all that good stuff. SSL. Yeah. How quickly can I do that? Let's try for it. Right. Give me the commands. That'll be an issue. If I can do this. How is this going to respond to a request from the well-known folder? Oh, you get tricky. Okay. Is that gonna work? Okay, so it sets up its own little server. Let's try that. Let's see what happens here. So I'm gonna go to the op directory. I'm gonna become user root, and I'm still gonna install it this way. Install git before, so let's do that quick. I don't know if this old post is gonna work. Certbots auto -h, fine. So let's turn off HAProxy real quick. Stop. So nothing's listening on port 80 because it looks like Let's Encrypt is going to have to take over that. So let's try this out. God, I need a domain also. Nope. This isn't happening. Let's do this instead. I think I can do this kind of quickly. Make a self-signed certificate. So Etsy SSL. Yeah, that'll work. Fine. We need a private key. So proxy.key. Thank you. We're going to make a new certificate signing request. So let's see, country name USA, state is Texas, full name, right? Yep. City will be San Antonio, organization name, servers for hackers, unit name, I can skip, common name, this is going to be the domain, so let's just say this is lb.serversforhackers.com. I won't end up actually setting a domain to this address or anything. No password. And I have a key, I have a CSR. Need to sign that and create a certificate. So let's copy and paste that, and this is going to let me move up, right? No. Okay. Okay, so I'm just doing this so I can set the right file paths kind of easily. So I'm not doing the zip.io example for my blog post. So expire in 365 days, use the CSR we generated, use the key we generated, the private key, and give us the certificate file at the end of that. And I think I did that right without messing too many things up. So site servers for hackers.com. Spell that right. I need proxy SSL, where I have an example of that somewhere. Good. And I think I even do this exact process. I do. Look at that. Okay, so here's I need to cat the cert and then the key, and that'll make a PEM file. So cat HAProxy.cert and the HAProxy.key file, and we'll create a new file there named HAProxy.pem out of the output of those previous things here. So that's there, good. So etc SSL HAProxy and HAProxy.pem. So I think I can edit HAProxy now and set this up. So in addition to port 80, we're going to bind everything to 443, which means I need to get rid of my stats because that'll no longer work. Just comment that out for now. And this is going to be SSL stuff. So let's see. I think I'm just going to assume that this is going to be the right configuration. I don't think anything really has changed too much between HAProxy versions, but I think it's like 2 versions behind that this article is from. Anyway, we tell it's going to be for SSL, and then we tell it the cert path, which is that combined file we created. So etc SSL HAProxy, HAProxy.pem, PEM or PEM. Let's try it out, see what happens. Proxy, let's see, proxy, HAProxy. You don't like something. Okay, but that's not an error. That's just saying my DH param should be higher than the default, which is okay. I'm gonna not do that because configuring and setting up a new DH param file to be at least 2048 bytes actually takes like 10 or 20 minutes for it to do that because it's a big calculation. All right, so reload. Oh, it's not on. I turned it off so I could do let's encrypt stuff, which I didn't end up doing. Proxy status, you are up and running, good. Now it's going to give me nothing. I'm not in port 443. So this should say the SSL certificate is invalid and it's not secure to continue and good stuff like that. Let's see. Can't verify. I'm going to tell you to continue anyway. And you did. And I'm technically under HTTPS. So we have actually successfully, in theory, encrypted our traffic to use a certificate. That wasn't too bad. If I'm going to skip the stuff I actually did to configure the SSL certificate, all I did there was to create a self-signed certificate. So there's no certificate authority saying it's actually valid. But that's just for the purpose of showing you that you can set up an SSL certificate. Yeah, I know AirPods are the best. I love them. Okay, so what have we done here? Let me go edit this file. We can check that out. So I made the SSL certificate. Then I told the front end where it's listening for connections to bind to port 443 as well, which is the default for HTTPS requests. It's going to bind on all networks once again, port 443, and then it's going to tell it this is an SSL connection. So expect an SSL certificate to be used, and this is the path to the certificate, which includes the private key and the certificate. And in a real SSL certificate, it'll include any intermediary stuff in the SSL certificate chain, because you can have multiple authorities and a chain of certificate authorities in a real SSL certificate. They all get set to one file, and that one file is what HAProxy reads. And this is an example of SSL termination specifically. So HAProxy is getting the connection and it's unencrypting it, and then it's sending the request on port 80 to these servers, right? The port 80 here. So this is not encrypted inside of my private network in AWS where HAProxy communicates to my backend nodes, but it is encrypted, me on the public internet reaching my HAProxy server because it's using that SSL certificate. Okay, and now here we did get that proto header now, right? Because this sees that HTTPS is enabled, and so it added the header forwarded proto. So if I set my application up to do it, it would actually know to respond and generate requests or URLs and redirects and things like that with HTTPS instead of just HTTP. If that doesn't make sense to you, you can check out a recent series I have on load balancing with Nginx where I actually describe that thing, that exactly very thing, in the application prep video here, where I show you how the application, the Laravel application, doesn't actually get the correct information. It doesn't generate correct URLs. until we set up the trusted proxy package, which tells the application how to read these headers here and actually make use of them when it does stuff. Cool. I think I'm going to stop there. I'm about 10 minutes off until I'm done with my lunch break, and I think that's all I'm going to talk about. You guys have any questions? You know what? I don't have time for questions. I'm sorry, but you can tweet at me or something, and I'll try to get to you throughout the afternoon. So that'll be it. See you later.